And we're live.
What is up?
All right, this is the second episode of the Common Sense podcast, and we're joined by Tony Malone. Tony, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. How's it going with you?
It's okay. So, it's MLK Day, Tony.
Yeah.
It's it's National.
Black People Day.
You said it, not me. So,
Somebody had to.
right? So, it's entirely a coincidence that I have my first black podcast guest on MLK Day, and we happen to be talking about racial sensitive issues.
Uh-huh. Entirely a coincidence.
Totally. So, first, just so people have some reference and background, I've known Tony for maybe, I don't know, probably over 10 years. And, Tony, you lived all over the country. What are some of the places you've lived?
Lived in California, Georgia, currently in Delaware right now. Lived in Chicago, Indiana, all over. My mom was a travel nurse, so pretty much every 13 weeks we went everywhere.
And and you move them, you take care of your dad, right?
Yes.
Gotcha. All right, so, where'd you live in California?
I was in the LA area.
Man, so you lived basically in most of the major cities.
Yep. That's where the money is.
Well, it's where the crime is, which is why that's where the money is.
Hey man, people equals money, also equals crime.
It's true. So, let's talk about hiring discrimination. I'm always vilified by people I know, people I don't know, and I always say that people that are Republicans say that I'm a liberal. People that are Democrats say that I'm a right wing nut. And essentially, it's because I'm usually independent thinking. I'll vote for any president that I think is good. I'll vote for any senator, governor, mayor, whatever, what have you, that I think is good. Not necessarily with a party affiliation. The problem with that is, if you vote for Republican president, I know I have to deal with the Republican ideals, and I know that a Republican president means gun agenda, abortion agenda, church agenda, and ultimately butt fuck the poor agenda.
Yeah.
If Republicans had their way, there would be no social programs. I mean, they're going as far as trying to privatize education completely. And private education is a problem with higher education. So, just to give people my stance on things, what's your political affiliation? Do you have one? Are you independent? Do you think what are your beliefs as far as politically here?
I consider myself extremely liberal, I'd say. Like, I'm not, I don't know, I think there's common sense to be had in both sides of the coin, but I usually lean liberal because most of the talking points for the Republicans I find extremely repugnant.
Okay. I think one thing that makes it so hard to vote Republican for me is their talking points aren't all that hidden, and their actions aren't even they're like this tax bill. Yeah, we're gonna create tons of jobs, and like it's just like they're not even trying to hide what they're really doing. Like,
How many jobs is estate tax, removing the estate tax, going to create? You know what I'm saying?
right? I understand, and I'm not saying that some of the things that are in the bill aren't that bad. Like in theory, lower corporate tax you could understand why that should bring factories jobs back. But I think I don't know if it's going to work. That's the only thing that's like a maybe in the bill. Pretty much everything else is like a extreme fuck you to the middle class. It's an extreme fuck you to blue states, especially. I mean, most states where that $10,000 real estate tax is going to come into play are going to be they're Democratic states. Most of the red states, the property values aren't that high. I mean, there's a reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you want to make real money, you have to go to those. You have to go to Boston and New York, San Francisco, L.A. Most of the places, and the only money that's in the Republican Party is old money. There's no innovative money. There's no, hey, this guy just made this brand new invention or whatever, and like everything is like, and I guess that's the party line, conservatism. Like they want to keep the status quo because they like it where it is, and that makes total sense. If you're a rich billionaire that doesn't give a fuck about anybody else, like yeah, it makes sense that you want to keep every penny you earn. Like I get it, I totally understand. That being said, I think if left unchecked, I think we'd be Argentina. I believe that Republicans and Democrats, I mean, they need each other, even though they hate each other. They don't realize they need each other, but there needs to be a balance. And I think the problem I have with Republicans, if you look especially in our last presidency, the Republicans just cock-blocked Obama anytime he did something or tried to do something that was good. I think you even mentioned a senator filibustered his own bill.
Yeah, Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader. Like, here's the thing. American politics has moved extremely to the right. Many of Obama's policies and like the way he's governed would have been straight out of a Republican playbook in the 70s. He
Sure.
would have been considered a Republican.
Sure.
Like he is like far to the right of what many people consider, like they call him a communist. And like you look at like socialized like public countries in Europe that have like socialized medicine and things like that. Those policies are not really communism. They're mostly common sense.
Well, one thing I'll say, I think there's a lot of debt happening in this country because the government doesn't control it. It doesn't make sense that insurance is government subsidized, but the hospitals are not. You can get student loans, government grants, whatever, but education is privatized. Any institution that has to be involved with government should be regulated by government if we're going to go that direction. I totally understand privatizing government at the local level, but when you talk about something like college, right? Back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, even 80s, your dollar went further, and an education didn't mean that you amassed a ton of debt. Nowadays, unless you want to get a second or third rate education, where your job has a ceiling as far as how much money you can make, you're going to be in debt. I think I don't remember the exact statistic, but it was showing that it would take an average doctor until like 50 to overcome the debt difference, as if he just worked a minimum wage job until he was that same age. Like, that's ridiculous. And that's another part of the Republican agenda that, poor Republicans are extremely tribalist, and I'm okay with tribalism. It has its benefits, especially when you're talking about the survival of a group. But I think when it goes too far, blindly looking at something without asking questions, which, again, like, I don't like trying to adopt any idea without asking questions. And a lot of people are like, Republicans want to raise the tax, fucking raise it, see what happens. They're probably right, because that's who they chose. That's how it used to be in tribes. Like, the chief wants to attack the white man's village. We don't have modern weapons. There's 20 of us. There's 100 of them. Fuck it. Let's see what happens. Like, that's how it used to be. Like, that's what a tribe is. A tribe is you have a leader, and those leaders make the decisions for you, and you are going head first into the fucking brick wall no matter what the result is.
Yeah, well, politics has become a lot like a spectator sport or a tribe. Sports is like a tribe. People will go extremely crazy over their sports team.
Sure. I'm definitely more passionate about the New York Giants than I am about my own party affiliation. Because I'll put it to you like this: if I buy Giants merchandise, right? If I go to the stadium, if I do things like my dollar is supporting that team directly.
Mm-hmm.
Like a new stadium gets built, things like that. If I'm spending the money, and the fans' dollar goes a long way. So, like, I think the owner of the Giants, John Mara, said this year, it's like, I don't care if they go there and boo, as long as they go, because it means that they still care. The second a fan stops showing up, they don't care anymore. And the problem with politics is everything's so complicated that you can't tell what is and is not working. So one of Trump's claims is that, like, oh, he fixed the economy, he did, all these things and whatever. Like, and I think the stock market, especially, we're in 2018. Don't know if you're watching, whoever's watching this, if it's could be years from now. In 2018, from 17 all the way till now, the stock market has inflated artificially due to the fact that these people knew there was going to be staunch, ridiculous, gigantic tax breaks for capital gains. So these people, like, artificially inflated the market, and sooner or later they're going to dump it. The bubble's going to pop. These people that are everyday, just run-of-the-mill investors that, like, they're middle-class people. Oh, I'm going to invest $1,000. My money's, oh, wow, it's going up, it's going up, it's going up. I'm going to invest all my money. And then, bam, all of a sudden your stock's worth a third of what it was, and you lose all that money. Some of these people can't take those losses.
And I wonder where that's happened before.
I mean, it happened with the housing market. It was the same thing with George Bush. I think Bill Clinton made loose lending regulations. I think it got a lot of people new homes. And the problem is as long as something is made where it's deregulated, someone is going to take advantage of it. And when people push that advantage too far, things explode. The bubble was supposed to pop, but it wasn't supposed to burst. And, like, the housing bubble should have been, your house is worth 25% of what it was supposed to be, and now it's worth 10% less than what you bought it for. And then it'll fluctuate. It's not supposed to be your house is worth double what it was, and now it's worth half of what it originally was. I think that's...
Republicans are all about, all regulations are evil, but regulations are created in response to things that happen, and they're needed to protect, society.
All right. So
and people forget that, why the regulation exists, because we've lived so long from the event that caused the regulation to be enacted.
Sure. And again, I was saying, I think the seesaw is needed from Democrat to Republican, Democrat to Republican. I think that's necessary. But what I don't like, everyone talks about let's be bipartisan, whatever. Like, Congress openly blocked anything Obama tried to do, and it wasn't like he was trying to do crazy things. It's like, I think his only gun point.
They wouldn't even let him appoint people to the judiciary. Like, the president's supposed to appoint judges, and they blocked many of his appointments to the point where there was a huge backlog, and now those appointments are being filled by Trump, and those are lifetime appointments. So long after Trump's gone, 30, 40 years from now, there's going to be people that are part of his legacy still there.
Yeah, I think I watched a video on one of his appointments where, like, the guy didn't even have basic legal skills. Like, he had never presided over
He never been in a courtroom as a lawyer before, and he didn't know any of the basic questions to passing the bar or anything like that. He knew nothing about being a lawyer. He just got the degree.
Right, and now he's going to be a.
I think they kicked him out, just because even the Republicans on the panel were just so disgusted by his performance that you know, that's like one of the few times they just said enough is enough, and they didn't allow him to
You
become a
know,
judge.
but the problem has been a lot of his appointments have gone that way, where they can't answer basic questions, and they don't want to.
Hmm.
Like and they just sit there smugly and laugh and like, haha, I'm a billionaire and I don't give a fuck. Like, all right, so let's move on to now that I've established my to what most people will say who have turned off the podcast. That guy's liberal scum. Fuck him. He's not independent. Um, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna to the people that are to the liberals that are still listening that have my ear, and we're gonna lose them as an audience next. I want to talk about hiring discrimination. I don't believe in hiring discrimination, and what I mean by that is I think anyone that's willing to discriminate and not hire the best person for the job, you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose out on a talented individual. You do it enough times, and you're gonna find yourself at a disadvantage in your business. Now, if you want to look at the gold standard for this, when everyone tries to argue that that's ridiculous, I'll give you two instances where the discrimination was fought and people worked through it and they lost. Ready? Baseball, basketball. Like, all of a sudden, like, there was one black guy, he was doing great. The next black guy comes in, he's awesome. The next black guy comes in, he's awesome. And pretty soon, the majority of basketball players are black. Like, I think, and I think
Some people that say that's a bad thing.
I understand. That's going back to what we're talking about with being conservative and wanting to keep the status quo. Some wired packages and stuff. The status quo was that like white boy basketball was awesome. Personally, I want to see a guy flying through the air like an eagle and fucking slamming the ball. Like, it's exciting. Um, now you can well, I'll give you a relative of mine. We'll call him an uncle that was born into the whole white basketball thing. Said basketball has become ready nigger ping pong. Now it's funny because it's partially true. Team basketball isn't. I think the '80s was the golden point of basketball because you had a perfect mix of white and black athletes, team players, different orientated concepts and everything. Now, the owners don't even care as much about winning championships as being flashy because it makes more money. And we've gone past the point of teamwork and defense and things like that, and it's what team can amass the most flashy superstars where the talent is going to be too hard to overcome from the teamwork. I think like the Spurs are a good example of a really good teamwork team, but they just you can't put 4 all-stars on a team and win. So, and this is back to where I don't think hiring discrimination is a problem. Obviously, there's entry-level jobs like Taco Bell, McDonald's, like fast food places. There's janitorial jobs, things like that, where if you're not hiring that person, like that person's income might be the difference in their family, which has multiple small incomes instead of 1 or 2 large incomes. Can't pay their rent, can't survive, whatever. Then they need government assistance. Like, I totally understand. But I think when we're talking about hiring discrimination, I think most people are talking about free markets, CEOs, big corporate jobs, things of that nature. And I think if you're in an industry and you're going to use racism, sexism, whatever it is, to make your decisions, you're going to lose out on a talented individual, and eventually, it could be a game-breaking, game-changing employee that makes the company hundreds of millions of dollars.
All right, well, I like to butt in on that.
Go ahead.
All right, here's the thing. Most of the people involved in the hiring process aren't involved in the company's success. They're the HR people.
Totally.
They don't care that you're getting the best person. They're just looking at the names on the paper and they see Nikisha, nope, fucking Terrell or Skylar or whatever. Yeah, let's go.
I get it. And what I'm saying is those people will be hired somewhere eventually. Now, what sucks is they're gonna have a longer, harder road to get that good job, right? That sucks. Totally with that. I get it. The thing is when they do finally get that job in that place, and where they're valued instead of looked at like, yeah, we had to hire a black guy just so we don't, look fucking racist. Like, they're gonna be looked at, admired, and hopefully emulated throughout the company. And like, you're talking about a person. You remember the difference between house hunting and home hunting? Like, a house is not a home. Like, it's not the same thing. Like, your job is somewhere where you have to interface with people all the time. If you're in an environment that's racially charged, where people only think you got your job because of the race, like, that's a problem. And I think there's a lot of situations where the bills and laws and things that reverse that go in the inverse. For instance, you have to worry if you're a firefighter, right? Like, because I know locally there have been some firefighters and things that were hired that didn't meet the regulations they were supposed to, but they needed to hire a Hispanic or a black guy because there's too many white firefighters. So like, you're put yourself in their shoes, right? You're in a burning building, right? And you're living and dying by this guy's ability to do his job. You don't want to be second guessing and thinking like, oh my god, did this guy pass his test, or does he just have a job because, oh Jesus, and I think that's a bad thing. I think if there was no mandate to hire those people, and then they got hired, you're not worried if they can do their job or not. And I totally get that. You could say, well, these people aren't getting an opportunity. This isn't going to happen. This is bad. Like, whatever. Somewhere they will get an opportunity. It will happen. Because there's going to be someone along the way that will hire them and will let them in the door. And when that happens, if they're a qualified, hardworking, good at their job, they're going to advance. They're going to ascend past what they could in the racially charged environment where they're not necessarily accepted. They're just employed.
I think in a perfect world, absolutely, you should hire the best qualified people, and I think you should also like look at it as the fact that we're not in a perfect world, because a lot of times people who are qualified, they're getting left by the side of the road because of their name, how they look, how they dress, and there's a huge bias against like black culture in America, where somebody like a Jewish guy, he can walk in, apply for a job. He may be wearing like what's that hat they wear, the kippah or whatever.
Yarmulke.
Yeah, whatever.
Listen, I'm gonna tell you right now, Jews isn't
a. With his kufi, man. Like,
telling you right now, Jews is not a good one. My wife is Jewish, and depending on what part of the country you're in, or depending on where things are around you, Jews are just as hated as blacks. But regardless, every race, every political group, every religious group age group, sex is gonna face some sort of discrimination. Like, doesn't matter. But to give you another example that I'll go with, because we're just talking about discrimination, not necessarily racism. Let's say you're me in one of the businesses I run, and my choices are to hire a 22-year-old man or a 32-year-old mother of three, right? And I'm on a timeline-oriented business. Let's say it's articles, or let's say I have to have a product out by a certain amount of time. Like, if they're equally qualified, which person would you hire?
Yeah, the 22-year-old is probably not going to have the responsibilities that the mother will, so he'll have more free time to work on your business, of course.
Now, with that being said, most women will argue, feminists especially will say, fuck that shit. She deserves the job just as much as he does. Her home life shouldn't affect but you can't say that, because it's about dollars and cents. And this is why I think racism exists still. I think sexism exists still. But I think we've gotten I think we've gotten to a point now where these mandates should go away because the open market, the free market is so vast now with so many different types of jobs and opportunities and things. I think if you're hungry enough, you will find a job. You will find a job.
I
In the
disagree. I think I don't see the thing is people of color are still much less likely to get a call back than a white person, everything else being equal
Sure, of
in a lot of
course,
areas.
but
And
that's
something has to be done to address that.
going to happen no matter what because people are tribalists. And just like I tried, here we go. I'll argue. I'll argue back on the liberal side now. Someone wanted to get into an argument with me on Facebook and say that white privilege doesn't exist, and I was like, white privilege absolutely exists. And they're like, no way, you're full of shit. Blah 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 blah. And I said, listen, when I started my first business, right? My father knew people that owned businesses. My mother knew some people that owned businesses and things like that. Had money, upper middle class, lower upper class type of people. Um, if a black person was to start a business with no money, because mind you, my parents my parents didn't have a lot of money. Like not until recently was my father able to, you know, really support himself in the lifestyle he wanted. Like I didn't get to go to college, right? Like for the most part, the vehicles that I got, I had to buy that were my mom's used vehicles that I might not have wanted, right?
Hmm.
But and so when I ventured off into my own in my early 20s, I didn't have any money to start a business. I was just like, well, let's fucking do this and see what happens. Uh, and through painstaking hours and hours and hours of beating my head against the wall, I eventually broke through with a couple clients because um, although he didn't give me any money, my father was able to introduce me to a couple people that were able to like get me through those hard months of paying the bills here and there, and I was able to then grow my business based on my clout, my merit, my skills, whatever that I had cultivated. And if I was black, where would those clients have come from? Like, where would they have come from?
Yeah, you sure wouldn't have gotten Leroy on the corner to help you out.
Exactly, because black people up until recently didn't have any fucking money, and in the most areas they
That was by
still
design in America. By
right,
design.
and
Anytime
still
black people did get ahead, they pretty much ruthlessly stamped them down.
right. So like, do I think it's impossible to start a business as a black person and succeed? And like, no, of course not. And I have to say, the road will be rockier. It will be rockier, and it sucks. But that being said, um, I don't think the I don't think it's entirely fair that when I went to the SBA, they gave me advice. They were like, "Well, get a minority business partner, get a silent partner that is only X amount of percent of the business, and we'll be able to give you an SBA loan or a grant." It's like, what? Wait, what are you telling me? You're telling me I have a good business model. You're telling me that I've shown you that I already have a customer base that I want to grow it, and you're telling me no. Yes, that's exactly what you're telling me. You're telling me no because I'm white. Well, that's not what I said. But you told me to get a minority business partner. Yes. Okay. So they can't say it's because of my race because then I could sue for reverse, discrimination. But there is an allotted amount of money for white business owners, black business owners, Spanish business owner, and then other minority miscellaneous whatever is on the form. And I think it's and you could argue like, oh yeah, well you're white, fuck you. um, but it shouldn't be like that. I could be just as poor and nameless if I'm white as if I was black.
Absolutely.
So I think this is where some of these things are going too far. And is
Yeah, the
that
system.
is that
What's
a
that?
is that going off in your background or mine?
Yeah, someone's car alarm is going off.
Well,
Here,
go ahead.
anyway, what I was saying though, is absolutely that is a problem. And the systems we have to fight discrimination and give people, opportunity, they're unfair on the other side of it. And we don't have a better system though. You know what I'm saying? Like we got to give somebody a chance who grew up in a poor situation, who didn't have the opportunities, who didn't have the connections to try to get better, or our society is going to stay the way it is, and we're going to have this huge divide between black people and white people or whatever in America. It's a legacy of slavery. It's a legacy of Jim Crow, and we have to deal with it some kind of way. I don't have the answer to that. If I did, I'm sure maybe I could run for president or something.
All right. Well, and this is back to what I was saying about hiring discrimination. I just think we're at a point now where the system has given enough opportunities, and there's been enough things where there's going to be someone like me. If some motherfucker can do the job I need them to do, I will pay them. I'll pay them well. I'll pay them more than what they're worth so that they're happy and I'm happy. And most people aren't like that. Most people are fucking greedy. And I'll say this, had I been greedier early in my life, I would probably have gotten to where I am now maybe 5 to 10 years sooner. And part of that sucks. Part of that's my own fucking bullshit. Part of that's my problem. Oh well. Too bad, so sad. I'm owned. Oh well. But unless you're like a publicly traded company, being heartless and ruthless doesn't really make you much more money, and it creates enemies, which I try not to do, even though here I am talking on this podcast, creating enemies on anyone who listens. And I just don't, I think when you're talking about, especially like an educated position or a skilled position or something, the cream will eventually rise to the top. Whether you're black, Indian, Asian, Jewish, whatever the fuck you are, you will get a job somewhere. And that company will absolutely see your worth because they hired you. Like, if something, it's like a relationship. If you get in a relationship with a girl that like reluctantly gets, I guess I'll go out with you. I guess I'll blow you. You know, I guess, whatever, we can keep dating. And it's like you pop the question. It's like, I'm not sure. Maybe, ask me again in 3 months. It's like, no, find someone that's head over heels for you. Yeah, I would love to go to the movies with you. Yeah, I'd love to do like, you're getting ready to create and enter a bad situation if you're pulling the race card to be hired. Because if that happens, like it's not going to end well for either you or them. If you find somewhere to work where they hired you based on your experience and your merit and things, you have a much better chance of ascending the ladder or getting more money or doing whatever, because those people are going to hire you based on your value.
I mean, I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, the world really does not work that way. Look at the situation with Mark Wahlberg and that one actress where they were in that movie, the one where they had to replace Kevin Spacey. They had to do the reshoots, and Mark Wahlberg and this actress both signed up for the same amount of time. They both had the same agent, and Mark Wahlberg was given like $1 million, and she was given like $5,000 to come back and do the reshoots.
First off, it's Mark Wahlberg, and he's going to get more money. If you can't give me the actress, okay, let me ask you this, right? Mm-hmm. I think when Bruce Willis did The Expendables, he was like the second or third highest paid actor on it, and he had like 2 minutes of screen time. Like, why? Because he's Bruce Willis. That's like saying like what's going to cost more money, a Honda Accord or a Datsun?
Yeah, but it's Mark Wahlberg. You say that like he's fucking. Like you're saying he's Anthony Hopkins.
He's built a brand. He's a famous actor at least, and he has a following. Like, You didn't even give me a name of the actress. I think this is a bad example.
Yeah, Michelle Williams. I think is
Okay, let me ask you this, right?
her name.
Who do you think's gonna pull more money? Because I can't even think of this bitch's name, but Morgan Freeman or the chick that's on The Big Bang Theory that's from Blossom, like, you know what I mean? Or how about this? Will Smith or Melissa McCarthy?
Well, Will Smith has been around for 20, 30 years.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He's black. Okay. Jamie Foxx or Anna Faris?
I don't know. She's been blowing up pretty big.
Get the fuck out of here. Her biggest claim or advance lately is that Chris Pratt dumped her.
Man, Scary Movie was great though.
How many years ago was that? Who the fuck are you talking about?
18.
I think you're losing this argument and you're deflecting, and it's not good.
Of course I am.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's go to let's talk about something a little later. Let's go. We'll circle back around to a different type of discrimination, but let's talk about black food culture.
Yeah.
Obviously I know the stereotypes. I don't know how real they are, but I know about watermelon and grape soda or grape drink, and fried chicken and waffles.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know about the like racist slave foods like chitlins, and so I would like macaroni and cheese. It's another one. Anything you can get at KFC is a black staple. That's what most.
All of those are American foods, though. Like, it's not like they're particularly black foods.
All right. Well, why don't you enlighten the audience on some real black foods?
What, greens, cornbread, like you said.
Man, even all of a sudden you have a southern accent. What the fuck?
No, man, like.
Damn, it wasn't even cornbread. It was cornbread.
Ribs, like both cultures like that. Like a lot of things, same things, both cultures like. The only difference is in the preparation, I think. Like we'll add a lot more fats to our food for the flavor. We'll add more seasonings to our foods, things like that. But I mean, other than that, a lot of the foods are pretty much American foods, except for something like chitlins or something like that.
I would argue that something like fried chicken, depending on how it's battered, is actually like not as bad as like the white Americanized versions. Like for instance, I recently made some. I ground up pork rinds, which are to use for breading instead of breadcrumbs, and I dipped some rotisserie chicken breast, some egg fucking mix, and the pork rinds. Dropped it in like some super hot canola oil, and it tastes almost like KFC, and there wasn't a single carb in it. And I think a higher fat diet is generally a healthier diet, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons less people that are black are obese than white. I think the black diet has something to do with that.
I mean, soul food is mostly high-calorie foods that were designed to keep the slave working. You know what I'm saying? Like,
come on, man.
I mean, think about it. Like, what place in society does like a big thing of macaroni and cheese or like fried chicken or something like that have, except like just to be a huge source of calories?
I get it. To a degree. But that stuff's fucking delicious.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Alright.
Because, like, humans crave calories and, you want the high-fat things. Your brain's like, oh my god, it's a great source of fucking calories.
Fat's a better source of food than carbs. I I think almost everyone I know in real life, maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, I started talking about getting off the carb train. There was one point I was eating like my stepdaughter and my wife, and gross. I gained so much weight. I was like 245 pounds, and I'm only like 5'10". Like I weigh like 200 and change now, like 205. I carry the weight okay. Like I still have like a 33-inch waist, and I obviously have some extra pounds on me. You can see my face got a little bit of jowls going on here, but I eat a mostly fat diet, and my lifestyle is almost entirely sedentary, especially since I tore my ACL, where I put on a lot of gross weight that I don't like. But I just think higher fat foods are better for you. Um,
Well, like going back to soul food, most of soul. Oh, I'm sorry. That was my phone. Sorry. Uh, Going back to the soul food, right? Most of those foods are older foods. You know, like most of the diet towards carbs and all of that started in the 60s and 70s onwards, as you got the corn lobbies and all of that to get involved in food production, all these companies like that, and they started pushing these things. Whereas before that, like most of the foods people ate were high fat foods and things like that because getting large amounts of grain wasn't that easy.
right.
Like grain production and all that shit exploded in the mid part of the 20th century. And in order to keep that train pretty much rolling as far as money, like they started pushing these high carb foods and diets and all of that.
Well, it's
And
addictive on top of it.
yeah,
Really addictive.
sugar especially, and you have a sugar lobby.
I think
They've been
sugar.
pushing sugar.
I think sugar, at this point, is more addictive than heroin, and I think to a degree, that's been proven.
Look at the food pyramid that showed up in what was that, the 60s or 70s?
Yeah, I
They
have
got a
a.
whole bottom level of carbs.
Yeah,
Who lobbied to put that in there?
the foundation level is carbohydrates, right? And I think, hey, 1 in 3 Americans is pre-diabetic or diabetic, and this goes back to what I was talking about in the. I think medicine at this point should be government regulated or government ran. If we're gonna have any free healthcare for anybody, right? Um, like what's to stop the hospital from charging me $1 bajillion for something? Like this is why Obamacare is marked as a failure by the Republicans. The problem is like, oh, you have mass health, or you have Obamacare, or you have Connecticut standard, whatever, or whatever the fuck it is, whatever state we're in. Um, like, what's to stop them from ordering unnecessary tests, doing unnecessary things, making me pay? Because they know I'm not paying for it. If it was my insurance and I was on the hook for it, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I might be like,
In most socialized systems, the government controls the cost of procedures. They control the cost of
right,
drugs.
drugs too.
And they say, if you're going to charge this much, we're not going to pay for it. You still have to provide the service. So then they have an incentive to provide an efficient service that makes sense. Whereas with our current system, even, forgetting Obamacare, just like with the insurance system, the hospital can charge like $1,000 for a pill. You know what I'm saying? Because
Totally.
the patient's not paying for it.
And that's where I'm going with this is like one of the benefits of just free healthcare across the board. Number one, like your social standing isn't going to cause you to have problems like with your health. The other thing is like I think because of the nutritional standards let go in this country, because of these evil food corporations that are poisoning us, because let's face it, there is so much mass-produced food in the United States that is illegal in other countries. Folks, illegal. Not like it's not good for you or it has a little more of this or a little more of that. Like
Chicken is banned in Great Britain.
there are bread additives that if you were to put them in bread in China, you would be facing like a $250,000 fine per serving and jail time. Here, it's in almost every single piece of bread you're going to eat, which is fucking insane. I think there's only a couple places in the United States that don't use these type of bread conditioners. I think Subway is one of them. So, for those of you fucking fat fucks eating your meatball marinara at Subway every day, you're safe. And I think I think gluten is a red herring. I think when people get away from gluten, they're just getting away from bread in general, which is a good idea. And I think that's the thing that really pushes it forward. People think that like gluten. No, everything that gluten is in is basically a grain based thing. You're not eating gluten. You're not eating that grain. Grain itself isn't that good for you. You put on these poisonous additives that fuck up your gut biome, and it's going to be even worse. Um, like really bad, really fucking bad. So so the other thing I want to talk about sentencing discrimination.
Okay.
I don't know if you have any. I don't know if you have any examples.
Well, let's talk about the difference between powder cocaine and crack. Whereas it's 100 to 1 sentencing disparity between those two, and the primary reason for that is it's black folks mostly dealing with crack, and powder cocaine is mostly a white man's drug. They're both dangerous drugs, but the sentencing difference between them is 100 to 1. Like, what explanation do you have for that?
Well, that's definitely class warfare, and I mean, not even so as like a black and white thing, but I'll say this, because I made the same argument for Trump. I don't think that Trump is racist. I think he's classist. The problem is most minorities are in the lower class, or at very least, or at worst, the middle class. At best, sorry, at worst. Jesus. So, are there some upper class minorities? Of course there are. But I'm saying, as a whole, I think you'll find if you do the research that most minorities are lower or middle class. Mm-hmm. So, those are the people that are going to be able to afford crack versus cocaine. So, and I think there's definitely a, yeah, this motherfucker's poor, who cares type of deal, which is a problem. I don't think it's necessarily racist, but I will agree that it's classist. That being said, there's definitely some sentencing biases in a lot of places. Like, I think there was a Times article published a year or two ago I read that where it was something like I think for the same crime with the same amount of priors, blacks got 170 something more days average more the imprisonments of whites. Like,
more black folks are on have life without parole sentences for non-violent crimes than white people.
Right. But like, I think felony drug possession is another one where it's something crazy. You're talking like in some places in Florida where it's like almost 200% for the exact same crime.
Mm-hmm. Blacks are also more likely to be stopped and searched, and they're more likely to be put in a situation where they don't have legal representation. Like, have you heard about the case in Louisiana where the black defendant, he was in the police station being interrogated. He kept saying, "I want a lawyer, dog," and they wouldn't give him a lawyer. And the case went to the Supreme Court in Louisiana, and they said, "Oh, that's fine," because he was asking for a lawyer, dog, and not a lawyer.
Jesus Christ!
Come on.
Well, I think just past November, a couple months ago, I think that the United States Sentencing Commission released something where like that black people got 20% longer sentencing. It just didn't make sense. Like, now, how much of that is you have a white old judge sees a white kid and thinks sentimentally, oh, that could be my grandson or my kid or whatever, or it's a tribalist thing where it's like, oh, he's white, I could see where him coming up, this could happen or whatever, where he can't put himself in a black person's shoes. And a lot of older white people are just generally more racist. I mean, if I look back to my great grandparents versus my grandparents versus my parents, the level of racism goes dink, 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 and I just think it I think in a few more generations, I don't think racism will be very prevalent at all. But
I think depending on generation, like you've had media exposure, more mixing of the races, so more people are accustomed to meeting each other, meeting people of different races. And they don't have many of the same preconceived notions. Like you and I, we met in a video game. We've been talking for like 10 years. We've interacted with each other. 50 years ago, that wouldn't have existed. I wouldn't have known you. You wouldn't have known me. And many other relationships like that. You know what I'm
right,
saying?
and if we had saw each other in a 7-Eleven and we bumped into each other,
Yeah.
you might have been hanging from a rope.
Fuck out of here.
Years and years and years ago, that could have fucking happened. Stupid shit like that happened all the time, where people would pick fights and then kill people. And then no one would get any jail time. It's totally fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I think you're right. I think it's one of the few times where our social environments are a good thing. Social media, I'm saying. Like, it's one thing where something like Facebook, I can reach out to people that I forgot existed. I think as a whole, our society is getting worse and worse at having real life interactions because of the computer. But at the same time, like I was saying, things like racism, free market ideas, a lot of other things are starting to they're starting to whatchamacallit, come around in a faster way. The acceleration of it is much better.
Because people are able to see each other for who they are, just human beings. They're interacting with each other more often. It's much easier to hold those racist beliefs when you never interact with someone, when you never see them, when the other race is just an abstract idea instead of somebody you see every day or speak to every day.
Sure.
What was that thing where they had the guy who disbanded the Klan? I think it was in Maryland or something, because he just sat around and like went to the same bar as them and started talking to them, and they all just started becoming friends, and they just met the guy, and it's the first time they ever spoke to a black person, one on one like that. I think that is what's going to change things, and previously, like a major reason. Like, we had segregation keeping the races apart. We had people in certain areas or ghettos or, social economic situations where they were separate from each other. And I think that's what caused a lot of the other, like, groups in America to merge into the mainstream of America, was they were able to move past those because there's no identifying symbol on them that says, oh, this guy's a fucking Irish immigrant. You know what I'm saying? Or this guy's an Italian. You can look at the guy and you just see he's a white guy or whatever, and he was able to assimilate into society, whereas, Hispanics, Asians, blacks typically weren't able to do that because it's so easy to see.
It's gotta be mad.
Against.
Matt sent a meme of Ash and Mark Hamill or Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, I see.
I got my hand cut off. Chainsaws are on aisle 7. Yeah. I'm totally with you there. I agree.
Going back to what we were talking about earlier with the hiring practices and all that, I think maybe going forward things will be better because of that. Because, a lot of the culture is mixing. It's becoming accepted. Has been for the last 20 years or so, where you see a lot more interracial marriages. You see a lot more, black people and white people becoming friends than they used to be. Like 30, 40 years ago, you didn't see that. Not nearly to the extent that you see nowadays.
Sure. I don't disagree. So speaking of we were talking about or when we weren't on the podcast, talking about discrimination, sensing discrimination, things of that nature. I I recently got into an argument with another friend about Oprah Winfrey. Um, because apparently people are like, Oprah 2020, Oprah for president. I'm gonna, I'll shoot my, I'll shoot off my main thoughts, and then you tell me what you think about it. I don't want Oprah at all anywhere near the presidency. Two reasons. One, I think I think all she'll do is take away from another candidate, and I don't want another celebrity billionaire president. I just don't, and I hate to say this, but I don't think Oprah is that smart, even though she's a billionaire. I don't think she's that smart. I mean, I think a lot of her speeches are written for her, a lot of her subject things. She's almost like. It's like that. It's like you get that feeling in your stomach, like when you know BET is owned by white people. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like.
I mean, okay, here's the thing. On the surface, it looks like she's just a female version of Donald Trump, whereas she's just a reality TV star or whatever. But if you look at her history, she worked her way up from nothing. She was poor. She started nowhere. You know what I'm saying? And she went to college. She learned to read at a very young age. She educated herself. She moved forward in a field that was mostly based around looks at the time. You know, like journalism with female journalists. You know, you had to fit a specific stereotype for looks. She pushed forward in that field and created a brand for herself and created herself essentially from nothing. And you gotta respect that.
Totally.
I
But
think she'll be a lot more empathetic to the what people go through in life because she was actually a normal person at some point versus someone like Donald Trump.
I understand, and I'm with you there. Except for here's the problem. Would you agree that more Democrats will vote Republican than Republicans that will vote Democrat?
Absolutely.
Okay. Would you agree that that number is probably vast in disparity? What I mean is like you could,
Yes.
if a,
If Donald Trump had been on the Democratic ticket, he would have never made it through the primaries.
okay, exactly. Okay, so we agree there. So here's what I'm worried about. I was reading some articles because I had basically remembered offhand some of the stupid fucking shit Oprah Winfrey did and the fucking angles she took on it. And I'm sure you know this. Well, the best thing I can bring up is, and it taught me something at a young age. I was watching the Real Ghostbusters cartoon. One of my favorite episodes is when Winston gets hoodwinked into a Indian battleground. Now, I don't know if you used to watch the Real Ghostbusters or saw the episode, but essentially Winston ends up playing baseball. And in like, and I, they end up playing for someone's soul. They thought it was Winston's, but it ended up being Peter's at the end, which is hilarious. But the moral of the story is they were going to cheat. They were going to cheat so that Winston wouldn't lose. And then the Egon figured out, oh, if we shoot him, good loses. And they're like, what? Why? Because and the Empire goes, evil cheats. That's what evil does. Oprah Winfrey's supposed to be good. If Oprah Winfrey's scandals and stupid shit she did in the past comes up to bite her gets brought to light at the time of the election, which Republicans are smart. What they'll do is now hold on, let me rephrase that. The rich, white, business-owning, billionaire Republicans know how to keep their agenda pushed. So they're clever. So they'll wait until Oprah wins the nomination before bringing up all these stupid things. And all these things she's done in the past that people might have forgot about are going to be like, oh, yeah, you're right, I can't vote for this fucking bitch. Jesus Christ, I don't want another 4 years of Trump. Fuck me. So that's totally a possibility. I don't want her muddying the waters, I guess. Because I don't think she's a real strong candidate. Like,
all right, well, here's my take on it. The American electorate is not very intellectual. The American electorate is not smart. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They vote based on feeling, just almost as much as the Democrats. I mean, as the Republicans do, just not to the same extent. Whereas, if someone is found to be a pedophile, the Democrats won't vote for that guy. Versus, look what almost happened in Alabama, where the guy almost won.
Jesus.
But in general, the American electorate pretty much goes out for the celebrity candidate. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, no, but hold on. So here's what I'm
Like
saying.
Arnold Schwarzenegger would win in a landslide if he could run for
Of
president.
of course. And who's to say I might not vote for him or something crazy?
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm saying is if you look at, okay, do you know about the the child abuse sex scandal thing that happened to her?
What? She was abused.
No. I'm talking about you know Trump had Trump University or whatever, right?
Oh yes, at her schools. She had a school in Africa or something.
Right.
Yes.
So like there was that, and then like some of the comments she made were like, the girls had never been told they are pretty or have wonderful dimples. I wanted to hear those things as a child. It's like, oh my god. The girl and I guess she was part of the cover-up scandal, and then she tried to feign ignorance, like, oh, I didn't know anything, and then she said that, oh, the school officials told the girls to put on happy faces, like she has a history of taking stupid stances, imposing them on other people, and then causing bad things to happen to those people because of it, because she's Oprah. She's influential, right? Do you remember that whole thing on The Secret?
No.
Okay, so for a long time, Oprah was like heavily entrenched in that thing, the Secret.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what that is?
No clue.
Okay, The Secret is basically a principle that if you put it out to the universe, good things will happen to you. Almost like you're willing karma to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So there was this lady. I want to say this was maybe like 10 or 15 years ago. So basically, through the power of The Secret, which Oprah endorsed, she said, "I'm going to heal my breast cancer myself with the power of the universe." She obviously died shortly after, but
kind of like Steve Jobs.
Yeah. Or how about Dr. Oz?
Oh God. Or Dr. Phil, that guy. Like she put him up there, and he's pretty much just someone who uses people and their pain or whatever to get ratings on his TV show.
Right, but I think Dr. Oz promoted like crazy treatments and bad things. I think one of them was I want to say it was something stupid like magic beans. Like he was saying that they worked. Like
I mean, I feel the bar has been lowered so much that as long as the person isn't on tape, like slitting babies' throats, they got a chance.
I'm with you if the candidate was a Republican.
I think even like backlash against Trump has energized pretty much everyone, I think.
I don't think he'll lose if Oprah runs.
We'll see.
I think we'll.
I don't think she's gonna run though.
I hope not, because number one is I want a real politician. Someone's got to go in here to fix this fucking mess.
I don't think a real politician can win against Trump.
Sure. Bernie Sanders would have beaten Trump.
Maybe.
There's no maybe about it. Bernie Sanders would have beaten Trump. Because Bernie Sanders is for the common man, which is what Trump claimed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Trump went to all those battleground states where Hillary didn't even fucking visit. It's a lock. I still remember watching that clip of Bill Clinton fucking flipping out on her. You have to go to Michigan! Relax, Bill. Michigan's a lock.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Her hubris is just incredible.
If she had gone to those states, she would be president.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to go there and promise jobs. There's gonna be so many
Michigan
jobs.
by less than 12,000 votes.
So many jobs going around. You're gonna be tired of working. Like, his fucking thing with his hands and his fingers and moving and fucking like
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure if we put on a classical symphony and just superimposed a baton with his hands moving, it would match. But you can't have one guy giving you a message that's hardly believable, and then when you turn your head to look over, it's like a debate, but no one else is at the fucking podium. It's like listening to your fucking overly emotional, like, let's say there's two chicks talking. You have an overly emotional chick. Donnie did this and he yelled at me and blah, 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 blah. And you're hearing this and you're like, oh my god, this chick's so drama, but wow, he did this and oh my god, he did that and this is ridiculous. What an asshole. I don't like that guy. The dude walks in the door, she's crying. Oh, you're having a Donnie hate session now? And then fucking Liz is like, well, I don't know what happened, but you're a jerk for treating her like this. She sucked my best friend's dick. Oh. And then all of a sudden your opinion turns on what happened. Do you get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But there was no walk through the door. If she had walked there and said, there's no way he's bringing jobs, he's lying. We're doing our best job, or we're gonna do our best to bring jobs here, but he's not bringing you shit. Trust me. Even if she had just showed up and said that, she probably would have won the majority of those battleground states and won the presidency.
Even still, she barely lost Michigan by like 11,000 votes.
You said it was 12. It was going to be 10 or 9 and a couple more.
Yeah, well, it was like 11,500. I don't know. Look it up.
I'm looking it up now.
In general, like, I think it was less than like 150,000 votes between Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. What was essentially considered the Blue Wall states. And that's with her not even showing up to those states.
Yeah, I think Politico has an article here. I mean, I don't think Hillary's not crooked. I think Trump is just as crooked, maybe more crooked. But I think he's just admits the stupid shit he did. And like,
I just think the backlash is going to be so strong against him that as long as it's someone with name recognition, they'll probably win.
Bernie Sanders is the dream candidate in my eyes. I don't agree with a lot of his ideals. I think he's too far into that socialist idea. Like,
I think America needs to move to the left a little bit more, though, because we've moved way too far to the right.
Right, and I think a lot of Republicans will say, like, oh, we can't afford to take on the cost of healthcare. It's this much, or blah blah blah. I'll give you an example, right? Do you know how much it costs for medically for the average diabetic to live?
No clue.
It's $18,000.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, let's look at this. How many people in America have diabetes? I know 1 in 3 is diabetic or pre-diabetic. Okay, so 30.3 million people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that means that's... Jesus fucking Christ, this number can't be real. I must have done the math wrong. Hold on. Let's...
One thing, when you have healthcare for all, like, the costs are going to go down just because of scale.
I think I put the numbers in wrong. Because that number can't be real. Nope, it's real. Okay, so $545.4 billion is to treat diabetes every year. That number has to be fucking wrong. There's no fucking way. Okay, so 30.3 million Americans have diabetes, okay?
Mm-hmm.
30... Okay, 30... Okay, so it should be 30, comma, and then there should be 6 more decimal places, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because I got to do this again. I can't believe this number. Times 18,000.
You gotta realize most people aren't getting that level of treatment though.
No, the average diabetic. It's the average diabetic. Doesn't matter. Because you're talking about, you have people like my mom who are on 50,000 different medications caused by her diabetes, which then hurt her kidneys, which then do this and then do this, right? And then you're talking about there are people that just have it and die. And then there are people that are on the way far into the spectrum. They're going blind, their organs are failing, and all this other stuff. So those people cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep alive.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why Republicans don't want to treat people with a pre-existing condition. I understand that, because they're really fucking expensive. But I think if America was to be in control of the medical system and the insurance system, and there's free medical care, I think things like nutrition coaches and things like that would be part of the budget. They'd have to be, because diabetes is a fucking epidemic. But
You're gonna be fighting against American culture though. Like, look what happened when Michelle Obama pushed the whole healthy school lunch program, and they rebelled and started drinking their fucking Slurpees on stage, talking about stay out of my lunches.
Well, dude, I don't know if you know this, but I think Taco Bell, McDonald's, and a bunch of those places are already in as the school lunch.
Oh yeah, I remember in the '90s they started that shit.
Yeah, so that's a real issue in itself. Corporations have no business selling food to kids on a daily basis, especially if it's not nutritious. Dude, do you know what a Taco Bell taco used to taste like when I was a kid versus now? I can't even really eat it. Every once in a while, I'll be like, you know what?
It's 90% oil and the rest of it's carbohydrates.
Well, no, even when I do get something, I usually get a double-decker taco supreme, which has double the shell, but it's meat, cheese, sour cream. It's fucking delicious. Except for it's not delicious. When you start eating real food and you realize when you eat that shit, it's like, oh my god, what am I doing? This tastes so bad for me. Oh. And then you eat one and you're like, God, that was fucking gross. Do I have another one in the bag? You know what I mean? Because there's fucking shit in there that's super addictive. The chemicals that they add in, it's like cigarettes. Have those gross tars and whatever, your body's
Yeah, they trigger your dopamine responses.
Yeah, exactly. Social media does that. Same thing. You get a text on your phone, there's a little, ooh, who texted me? I know I've gotten 2 or 3 alerts. I need to check for my business, but when it was Matt, I was like, ooh, Matt sent me something. Yeah, think about that. 545 billion. Now, that's when 9.4% of Americans are diabetic. What happens when that grows to 20%? And we can't sit here and say it's not going to get to 20. Diabetes used to be 1 out of 10,000 people. You know what I mean? Now it's it's more than 1 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
It's our diet, it's the food that we eat, it's all this shit, and it needs to die, it needs to go away. And
I think most of the problems, especially with healthcare and just a lot of problems in America in general, stem from lobbying. If you get rid of that, I think government will make a lot more better decisions, a lot more decisions that are common sense based, or at least decisions that are designed to better the people that they're governing versus ones that are designed to get those lobbying dollars.
You shouldn't be able to pay someone to fucking convince people to change their mind, and because all you're doing is paying them money.
Making our government for sale. You might as well just legalize bribery.
That's all. That's what it really is. At the end of the day.
Yeah, it's just a level of scale. They've created a system where it's illegal to bribe someone unless you bribe a certain amount. You know what I'm saying? Because they can offer a politician hundreds of thousands of dollars while they're in office, and then they offer them millions of dollars when they get out of office. They're like, if you vote this and this way, when you leave office, there's a job for you.
Right? How many FCC attorneys and whatever like work for Verizon or vice versa? Like, those exactly. I'm with you. I totally understand. So wow, Jesus Christ. So I guess to round out this the diabetes thing, which back to the healthcare thing, which back to Bernie Sanders. I think Bernie Sanders wanting to see what people don't realize is if things are government mandated, they're going to be cheaper. When the government's actually paying for it, like when it's actually part of that budget, not part of like a budget that they can axe. Because if it's something that they have to do, they're going to do it the most efficient way possible. If there's something that can be voted on and changed and taken away and whatever, like, no. They don't give a fuck. And they're going to abuse the shit out of it till it breaks so that they can overturn it.
The conservative argument is that the government is inefficient. And the only reason they're able to make that argument is when they control the levels of power, the levers of power, what they'll usually do is do everything they can to break the system. And then they say, look how broken this is. You know? This is our argument against regulation. This is our argument against government. Look how broken this is after they did all they could to break the system. They even have a name for the policy, like one of their policies, Starve the Beast, where they cut funding for programs, make them inefficient because they can't run themselves correctly because they've been cut so badly. And then they're like, oh, look how terrible this program is. We better just cut it out.
Well, I'm not disagreeing. But you know how I feel about things like minimum wage, which is a Democratic staple, and I think that's just as fucking evil and terrible as anything that Republicans do. People think that minimum wage is a help, but like it does nothing but cost people jobs, because depending on what the job is, if you have something that is a global cost, but you're getting billed on a local resource, like, you can't make money. Like, do you know how many restaurants in San Francisco closed when they raised their minimum wage? It was something crazy, like 25% of the restaurants closed because they couldn't afford to stay open anymore. Like, because they had to pay the non-wait staff that high minimum wage.
Well, I mean, we got to do something because, like, you have situations where Walmart
tax
their employees
the rich. Tax the fucking rich.
Sure as hell don't want to do that.
Tax the fucking rich. What I don't understand about people that have fucking money, and this is a mindset that has been plaguing our fucking country. At what point does hoarding your fucking money trump not making more? Like, it's the same fucking thing. You're just generating less. What I mean by that is, here's an example. I used to watch my mom clip coupons. That used to be a thing. I don't know if it's still a thing. I know plenty of people that still do it. They get the flyers, whatever. Then they go down to the store and they fucking give every coupon they fucking can to the clerk. Like, that mindset of, oh my god, I just saved. How long did it take you to sit there and fucking clip out the thing to save that 15 fucking cents? Like, the time it took you to do that does not equal the time if you had invested an hour of your life into generating more dollars. And then you're putting more money into that infrastructure. The supermarket is then, and I get it, they're doing it to get your attention to go there. I totally understand. And you're going to buy a bunch of shit that isn't on sale. I get it. It's why you go and get a meal deal at a fucking fast food restaurant, and then you fucking pay $2 for a fucking fountain soda that cost them 11 cents.
I think you're probably looking at it the wrong way. I think the original intent of coupons was not so much to save money. It was to give some people something to do. Like, the main target audience.
It's ritualistic. It's ritualistic, Tony. I get it. Ritualistic things are like...
It's a hobby, like collecting stamps.
I'm with you, but what I'm saying is, it shifted the mindset of our country. Our country used to be about, like, hard work, let's get this done, let's make as much as we can, let's do as much as we can, let's generate as much as we can. Now we're a country of, as if we're like a starving animal. We're in starvation mode. It's like my mom, God bless her, who's still a coupon whore, digs into her Groupon and says to me, "Hey, do you want to go to this restaurant? A place I frequent, for instance." I'll give a plug to Crepes Tea House. They have a couple locations, one in West Springfield, one in Enfield, I believe. And I go there. I say hi to the owner, right? And the guy's like, "Oh, cool. You want this table? This is where you normally sit here. I'll clear it off for you. The people were here, but like we'll make sure." And he takes a little bit off my bill because I go there all the time, and like we shake hands. How's it going? I haven't seen you in a while. Like he recognizes me. There's a personal interface there. Now they're not a huge fucking corporation like chain like McDonald's or something. And when my mom whipped out a Groupon, I like wanted to slap it out of her hand. I'm like, "No, I'll pay for this. I got it." Bink. I flop my card down. I'm like, You're not doing this. Use the Groupon. We're gonna save $8. Fuck you. Put that thing away. Because from knowing lots of business owners, running my own businesses, I know that those Groupons are designed to get new people to go to the restaurant. They're not designed for a fucking normal person that frequents it all the time to go there and save money. Mm-hmm. And this goes back to like, if that business gets to that point where all those regulars are using Groupons, they won't make any money and they'll fucking lose their shirt. Then the quality of the food goes down. Then the quality of cleaning the place goes down. Then they have to hire one less employee. Then they're understaffed. Then when they're busy, they don't have, like, I know the cycle. So what I'm saying is at what point did our country become, instead of taking time to make more money, I'm going to take time to save money that I could have made. Do you get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So, and this isn't a poor cultural influence. This happens all the way at the top. Like, if a rich person was taxed more, right? Mm-hmm. And they were paying into the support infrastructure. Like, let's use oil for example, right? Mm-hmm. Most of the oil people I know around here are diehard Republicans because they're thinking, well, it's the oil industry, whatever. I don't want to stub my own nose. Like, this is ridiculous, whatever. Okay. But if you take away those government programs, how many of those fucking people do you think are on fuel assistance that they get paid for? Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, what if that social program didn't exist?
And then they lose a lot of customers.
Right, but that's what I'm
short-sighted though. They don't look at that.
But that's what I'm saying. If you don't feed the infrastructure, if you try to starve the infrastructure, like you were saying, starving the beast, mm-hmm. The people are the beast. If you take away their ability to buy your product, eventually you're just going to start making less money. You have to understand that. You can't make the cost of living go up, and then you take the money. Those people need it. If you take that money away, they can't buy your products. It'll take a while. But what I'm saying is like, so what are you going to do? Have 2 or 3 good years of great profits where you're keeping more of the money?
And that's all they have to do, though. Look at the way the system works. A guy comes in as CEO. He has a couple great quarters. He gets some bonuses. Maybe things start going downhill. He leaves with a huge bonus. He's checked out. He moves on to his next job. And fixing the company's problems is the next guy's job.
Right. And that's how our country is operating. So I guess what I'm saying is well, another thing. I know there's more Republicans in government assistance than Democrats, and if you said that to a hard-working middle-class Republican, they'd tell you you're fucking crazy. But it's real. And those same people are voting against their own well-being, their own, like, I don't understand.
Because they don't look at themselves as being the person that's on welfare.
But they are.
If somebody on welfare, they still don't see it that way. There's people who use Obamacare every day, and if you told them they had Obamacare, they would look at you like you're fucking crazy. but they're like, don't take away my ACA. You know what I'm saying?
All right, that I remember that. Someone said, I'm not on Obamacare. I have ACA. ACA is Obamacare, dumbass.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
It's a huge success in Kentucky because you know what they did? They stripped Obama's name from it and called it Connect, and there it is. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, in Massachusetts it's called Mass Health.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, so I guess we'll round this out with so so you're still against hiring discrimination as a whole, or do you think
I think in a perfect world, it'd be great if you didn't have to have things like affirmative action. But at the same time, I think hiring discrimination is real. I think there's a lot of situations where you have two people who are qualified the same, and a lot of people will not hire the black person or the Latino person or the woman.
it goes the same way though? Like if you're, and I know
I
it's a
think
much rarer
it's totally
situation,
unfair.
but
Totally unfair.
it's tribalism, man. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm an attractive white guy, right,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna hire another attractive white guy. If I'm a gross introverted white guy, I'm gonna hire another gross introverted white guy. If I'm a black dude, I'm hiring another black dude. That's
Well, humans tend to prefer the people who look like them, even when they say they don't.
sure, and I think that's psychologically it's not necessarily a racist thing. It's a tribalist thing. It's that same tribal mentality. So I don't completely fault stuff like that. But there are definitely people that like they go through an interview and they're like, I'm not hiring that stupid nigger. You know, I know that happens. I know that happens. I get it. On the flip side of it is there's going to be people out there. It's like, you know what? This guy's so qualified and so good for the job, and like, you know, he's got a vigor about him. I got to hire this guy. He's the best candidate for the job, and like the fact that he was black doesn't even enter the guy's mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like
that's the best case scenario, and that'd be great. It'd be
I
great if it was
think
all like that.
I think now how competitive a lot of markets are, especially growing markets. I think minority hires is becoming a more prevalent thing because people want the best person for the job.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's less of an issue than it used to be, and I think we should start weaning off of the affirmative action teat.
I think in order to move towards that, I think number one, we need to fix the schools in inner city areas.
I'm with you.
Black areas.
Schooling, in my mind, is a Republican foothold. They because, and again, you're talking about they want to keep the status quo. They want to keep lower income people less educated, so they can't rise up from their status. It's real. That's a real thing.
It's not just Republicans too, though. Like, you have a lot of these teacher unions, which are Democratic unions, who will protect teachers, just like the police unions, who protect teachers who do a poor job just to maintain solidarity in their power. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. I'm with you.
And that needs in too. Like,
but I think limiting education is a Republican narrative because there, and a lot of people don't know this, and I'm going to say this, people don't know. There is a direct correlation between educational spending versus prison spending. Whenever you lower education, the prison budget goes like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sliding scale. Like, it happens. It's not a myth. Look it up. Just do your own research if you want to, but I'll tell you right now, the more educated people are, the less we need prisons. That's real. That's real.
And look at America over the last 40 years. Schools have been defunded like crazy, and there's been a huge prison building boom, and that's why you got we have the largest population of prisoners out of anywhere in the world.
Yeah, and you want to talk about taking jobs away. Those prisoners work for pennies on the dollar.
It's slave labor.
It's all it is, right? It's the new slavery. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so obviously, hopefully, you're at least you're at least raising an eyebrow now to the hiring discrimination, where you could at least see my point of view. I see your point of view.
I do see your point of view. That I think there are a lot of qualified white people who are discriminated against. On the flip side of that, who aren't allowed to get the jobs.
Okay, and
I do think it's unfair in many situations. I do. I totally agree with that.
in sentencing discrimination, I think we're both on the same page. I think it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're fucking green, blue, or pink. Like you, there. It doesn't matter. Like, and it goes back to this tribalist thing we're talking about, where like people of your own, if you can see yourself in a person, you're more likely to give them lenience. And I think most of the judges are they're white, and they're going to give white people breaks. I don't think it's a racist thing. I don't think it's a classist thing. I think it's a tribalist thing. I think there's a mental there. I think if there were, for instance, if there were more black judges than white judges in an area, I bet you that place would have more lenient sentencing restrictions on blacks. I think that goes back to the point of we do need more people in law that are minorities. But again, without education, how are they going to do that?
It becomes a cycle where like you have large swaths of black males who end up in prison or who end up with criminal records, and they're stuck in that type of life where they're working menial jobs and things like that, where they can't get ahead in life, they can't become professionals. A lot of colleges will not let you enroll if you have a criminal record.
Sure.
And look at the thing that happened in California, where they had a huge number of prisoner firefighters who were fighting the wildfires in California. When they get out of prison, they have those skills, they have experience, years, sometimes decades of experience fighting fires, and they can't get a job with the local fire departments in the state because of their criminal records.
Totally. I'm with you there.
And you'll have fire departments who need help, and they turn the guy away who has years of experience fighting fires because of his criminal record. Now, what do you expect that guy, and then you want to keep that guy out of prison or whatever, and you've given him a skill and told him he can't use it.
Yeah, I think the military does the same thing. I know people personally that have done, they've done 7 years in the military. They get out and they're, they can work X job, Y job, and it's just like, what's going on? Like, I thought I was getting a top flight education and this was happening, whatever, and now I'm being told that, like, my shit's worthless. What am I going to do? Like, and, they work for the post office or they work for a job like that where, like, a lot of military people get sent. A lot of military people are police, prison guards, like whatever. A lot of those people, when they leave the military, they don't want to fucking tote a gun. They did it enough. There's mandatory brain trauma that happens in the military. Like, mandatory. Like, bad things happen to you in the military. Mm-hmm. So, like, you're never the same when those things happen. You're just not. So, all right. So I think we're on an even ground on sentencing discrimination. But I don't know. Do you agree? Do you think it's a racist thing or do you think it's a tribalist thing? Because I think it's tribalism.
I think it's both.
Oh, I think there's definitely cases where racism comes into play. But I'm saying as the entire statistic, I think it's a tribalist thing. I think it's just a matter of you're going to give lenience to someone that you can see yourself in.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times you'll have people who are in these positions who are just that. I think another problem with it is not just tribalism or racism. You've made the criminal justice system a for-profit system where someone gets a benefit, or you've made it where someone's job depends on putting someone in prison versus discovering the truth. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
Like, you shouldn't have all the government resources, and you shouldn't have a prosecutor whose job it is just to put people in jail. Their job should be to seek justice. Their job should be to find the truth. There's plenty of cases where the prosecutor, they find exculpatory evidence and they decide to bury it instead of using it to say, oh, this guy is innocent, let's just move on and let him go, because they want to keep their numbers up.
Yeah,
because it's a benefit to them.
I think that's gross, and I know it happens. Okay, and top three foods. Let's go.
Man, ribs.
Okay.
Greens.
Okay.
And man, that's hard.
You want to say anything but chicken, don't you?
You know what? I go for a nice steak over some fried chicken any day.
Hey, I got right next to me right here. I don't know if you can see it on the wall. Fuck, I almost lost it. I'm eating a porterhouse that I didn't finish yesterday. So okay, and last thing, we'll end on this. Oprah for president, yes or no?
Maybe.
No, man. You can't go. You can't toe the.
You know what? Fuck it. I'll vote for it. I don't care.
My God.
I'll put the big old shirt on and get the old hats. You know, you get Oprah 2020.
You know what, man? I thought we were getting somewhere.
You know what? Because I have a lot more respect for her than the person currently occupying the office.
Listen, so do I. That doesn't mean shit.
If Bernie Sanders wins the nomination, I'll vote for him.
Okay, how about this? Mm-hmm. You have the choice between Bernie or Oprah.
I don't know what Oprah's policies are. I like Bernie's policies, so right now I would vote for him.
All right, great. What if Oprah had similar policies to Bernie?
I think she has a better chance of winning just because of name recognition.
Listen, I'm talking about who do you think will do a better job?
Who will do a better job? Probably Bernie. He's been in government for 40 years. He has experience working in government. Okay. Of course he'll do a better job.
I think I've manipulated the last 2 minutes enough.
It's not just about who will do a better job, it's who will get the job.
I get it. I'm worried though. One thing I'm worried about with Oprah, like I said, it's like that BET feeling that you get when you know it's ran by white people. It's like, I have the feeling that Oprah's thoughts aren't always her own, and I have a feeling that she just goes where the money is, and she's done that her whole life. You can look into it. Don't let my opinion sway you. Just look it up yourself. I think it's real, and I think it needs to be addressed. And
I think a Winfrey administration would be far better than this one.
It can't be much worse. I'll put it to you like that.
I don't think anything can be much worse. Like he's making George Bush look like a decent president, which is sad.
That's really hard to do.
He is. I would rather have George Bush as president. At least he's more competent. I would feel safer if he was in the White
George Bush and competent in the same sentence. Wow, here we go. Jesus Christ.
I would feel much better if George Bush was president right now. He's making Reagan look better to me. And I think Reagan started us on the slide towards being on the right wing in America, and I think he pushed a lot of those dog whistle type policies or politics with the Republicans. You know, like I think Reagan really slid the Republican Party into what it is today. Because like in the 70s and 60s, they were a far better party than they are now, even with Nixon.
Well, I'm gonna end on the thought that Bernie over Oprah. You heard it here, folks. A black guy that loves greens wants Bernie over Oprah. That's all I'm saying. Thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you guys later.
All right.